You woke up this morning, and maybe the first thing you felt wasn't gratitude. Maybe it was that familiar weight pressing down on your chest, that quiet fear about what today might bring, that unspoken worry you carry alone, the one you don't post about, the one you don't even pray about sometimes because you're not sure how to put it into words. But here's what I need you to know right now, before one more minute passes. You don't have to walk into this day carrying everything by yourself. You weren't meant to. And no matter how uncertain the road ahead looks, no matter how many unknowns are waiting for you today, there's one thing that remains absolutely certain. You are not going alone. This isn't just another prayer. This is you placing your hand in the hand that's been reaching for you since before the sun came up. Stay with me. Let's walk through this day together, covered, protected, and held. I want to start by saying something that might sound simple, but I think we forget it more than we realize. The way you begin your day matters more than you think. Not just what you do, but where your heart is when you open your eyes. Because if I'm honest, most mornings I wake up already running, already thinking about the emails, the appointments, the conversations I'm dreading, the problems I didn't solve yesterday that are still waiting for me today. I wake up in motion, and by the time my feet hit the floor, I'm already exhausted. But what if this morning could be different? What if, instead of reaching for your phone first, instead of letting the noise rush in before you've even taken a full breath, you paused, just for a moment, just long enough to remember that you are seen, that you are loved, that before you do anything for anyone else today, you are already held by someone who knows exactly what you're carrying.
I've learned something about mornings. They set the tone, not because we have to perform some perfect ritual, but because the first thoughts we allow into our hearts often become the lens through which we see everything else. If I start my day in fear, I'll look for threats. If I start in worry, I'll magnify problems. But if I start here, in this quiet space, acknowledging that I am not the one holding everything together, something shifts inside me. Starting the day in God's presence doesn't mean you have to have it all figured out. It doesn't mean you need to feel spiritual or say the perfect words. It just means you show up. You bring your messy heart, your racing thoughts, your honest fears, and you say, I'm here. I don't know what today holds, but I'm giving it to you first, before I try to control it, before I try to manage it all on my own. Think about it like this. Imagine you're about to walk into a building you've never been in before. It's unfamiliar. You don't know the layout, you don't know what's behind each door, but someone who knows the building inside and out offers to walk with you. They know where the safe paths are. They know which rooms to avoid. They know exactly where you need to go. Would you rather walk in alone, guessing, second-guessing every turn? Or would you take their hand and trust their lead? That's what this morning is. That's what this prayer is. You're not being asked to see the whole day. You're not being asked to predict every challenge or prepare for every possible outcome. You're being invited to start here, in this moment, with the one who already sees the entire day laid out before you, the one who's already been to the end of today and is waiting to walk you through it step by step.
So before you rush into anything, before you let the urgency take over, I want you to breathe. Place your hand over your heart. Feel it beating. That rhythm isn't an accident. It's a reminder that you're alive, that you're here, that you're being held even when you can't feel it. And today, right now, you're choosing to begin not in fear, but in trust. There's something vulnerable about stepping out your front door, isn't there? Something about leaving the safety of the space you control and walking into a world where anything can happen. The roads you'll drive on today, the people you'll encounter, the situations you can't predict. I think that's where a lot of our anxiety lives, in that space between what we can control and what we absolutely cannot. Maybe you've already thought about it this morning, the commute, the meeting that could go sideways, the conversation you've been avoiding, the errand that feels heavier than it should because of who you might run into. Or maybe it's not one big thing. Maybe it's just the accumulation of 100 small uncertainties that make you want to stay inside where it's safe, where nothing unexpected can touch you. But here's what I've come to understand about protection. It's not about avoiding every hard thing. It's not about living in a bubble where nothing ever goes wrong. Real protection is knowing that even when you walk through difficult spaces, you are not defenseless. Even when you can't see what's coming, you are not unguarded.
There is a presence that goes before you, that walks beside you, that covers you, even in the moments you feel most exposed. I think about how a parent walks with a child through a crowded place. The child doesn't see all the dangers. They don't notice the person walking too fast, the sharp corner, the uneven ground, but the parent does. The parent's hand is there, gentle but firm, guiding, redirecting, catching before the fall even happens. That's the kind of protection we're talking about. Not the removal of all risk, but the assurance that you are not navigating risk alone. And I want to be clear about something, because I think this matters. Trusting in divine protection doesn't mean you become careless. It doesn't mean you stop looking both ways before you cross the street, or that you ignore wisdom and common sense. It means you do what you can, you take reasonable precautions, and then you release the rest. You acknowledge that there are 1,000 variables beyond your control, and instead of letting that paralyze you, you choose to believe that you are seen, you are covered, and you are guided. Some of you are about to drive to work on roads you've driven 1,000 times, but today there's a whisper of fear. Some of you are walking into spaces that don't feel safe emotionally, places where you've been hurt before, and you're not sure you can do it again. Some of you are carrying responsibilities so heavy that just thinking about the day ahead makes your chest tighten. I want you to hear this. You are not being sent out alone. You are not being asked to be strong enough on your own. The road you're about to walk, whatever it looks like, is already being watched over. If this is speaking to your heart right now, I'd love for you to stay connected with this community. Subscribe so you don't miss these moments of peace and encouragement. And if you feel comfortable, drop a comment below. Just say, "I'm trusting today," or share what you're walking into that needs coverage. You're not alone in this.
Here's something I don't think we talk about enough. Most of the stress we carry isn't from the big, dramatic life choices. It's from the dozens of small decisions we have to make every single day, often without enough information, without enough time, without enough clarity. What to say in that text message, whether to speak up in that meeting or stay quiet. How to respond to that person who always seems to push your buttons. Whether to say yes when you really want to say no, or no when the pressure to say yes is overwhelming. We act like we're supposed to have all the answers instantly, like wisdom is something we either have or we don't, and if we don't, we're somehow failing. But I've learned that wisdom isn't about always knowing the right answer. It's about knowing where to go when you don't have the answer. It's about pausing long enough to ask, what's really needed here? Instead of just reacting from fear or pride or the desperate need to please everyone. I used to think being decisive meant being fast, that if I hesitated, it meant I was weak or unsure of myself. But there's a difference between hesitation born from fear and a pause born from wisdom. One freezes you, the other centers you. One spirals into overthinking, the other creates space for clarity to emerge. And sometimes the wisest thing you can do is admit, I don't know what to do here, and I need help. Think about it like this. You're in a store with hundreds of aisles, and you're looking for one specific item. You could wander around for hours, frustrated, exhausted, second-guessing every turn. Or you could ask someone who works there, someone who knows the layout, who can point you exactly where you need to go in seconds. That's what it looks like to invite wisdom into your decisions. You're not pretending you have all the answers. You're acknowledging there's a source of insight beyond your own limited perspective. Today, you're going to face choices. Some will feel insignificant. Some will feel like they carry the weight of everything. And in those moments, I want you to remember that you don't have to figure it all out in your own strength. You can ask, you can pause, you can say, show me what's right here. Not what makes me look good, not what's easiest, not what everyone else expects, what's actually right. And here's the beautiful part. When you ask with a sincere heart, when you genuinely want to do what's good and true, the guidance comes. Maybe not always in a lightning bolt moment, maybe not in an audible voice, but in a sense of peace about one path over another, in a door that closes before you can make a mistake, in a conversation that happens at exactly the right time with exactly the right person, in a clarity that settles over you like a calm after a storm. You don't have to carry the burden of perfect decision-making today. You just have to be willing to stay open, to listen, to trust that the wisdom you need for each moment will be there when you need it. Not all at once,
Not for next week or next month, but for right now, for this choice, for this step. Let's be honest about something. Some of you are going to walk into spaces today that feel anything but peaceful. Maybe it's a workplace where tension is thick, where people talk about each other instead of to each other, where you feel like you have to guard every word. Maybe it's a family gathering where old wounds sit just beneath the surface, where everyone's pretending everything's fine, but nothing actually is. Maybe it's a situation where you feel powerless, where other people's chaos becomes your chaos, whether you want it to or not.
And in those moments, it's easy to think that peace is something that depends on your environment, that you can only feel calm when everything around you is calm, that you can only breathe easy when there's nothing threatening your sense of safety. But what if peace isn't about your circumstances changing? What if it's about something deeper, something that can exist even in the middle of the storm? I know that might sound impossible right now, especially if you're already dreading where you have to be today. But I've experienced this, and I want you to know it's real. There have been moments when everything external was falling apart, when conversations were heated, when I should have been completely overwhelmed, and yet inside, there was this inexplicable steadiness. Not because I was pretending, not because I was in denial, but because I had anchored myself to something that couldn't be shaken by other people's emotions or unpredictable situations. Think of it like being inside a house during a storm. Outside, the wind is howling, rain is beating against the windows, everything is chaotic and wild. But inside, you're safe. The walls are strong, the foundation is solid. The storm doesn't get to determine what happens in your interior space. That's the kind of peace I'm talking about. The kind that says, I see the chaos, I acknowledge the difficulty, but I'm not defined by it. I'm not controlled by it. Now, I want to be very clear. This doesn't mean you ignore unhealthy situations. It doesn't mean you stay in spaces that are genuinely harmful and just smile through it. Sometimes wisdom means setting boundaries. Sometimes it means having hard conversations. Sometimes it means recognizing that certain environments aren't good for you and choosing differently when you can.
But in the moments when you can't leave, when you have to be there, when the difficult environment is unavoidable, you can still carry peace with you like a shelter that no one else can touch. This is where your morning matters. Because if you started your day grounded, if you took those moments to center yourself, to remember who you belong to anchor your heart before the world started pulling at you, then you walk into hard spaces differently. You're not going in empty, hoping to find peace there. You're going in full, carrying peace with you, offering it even to the chaos around you, without letting the chaos consume you. I really want to hear from you. What's the environment you're walking into today that feels heavy? Where do you need peace that seems impossible right now? Share it in the comments. Let's pray for each other. And if there's a topic you'd like us to cover in a future prayer, let me know. This is your space too. If I'm being completely honest, anxiety has been my companion more times than I'd like to admit. That grip in my chest that shows up uninvited, that spiral of what-ifs that starts small and grows until it's all I can think about. The kind of worry that doesn't even make logical sense, but feels so real, so urgent, so impossible to shake. Maybe you know exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe you woke up with it this morning. Anxiety tells us we have to prepare for every possible worst-case scenario. It convinces us that if we just think hard enough, worry thoroughly enough, we can somehow control outcomes that were never ours to control in the first place. It's exhausting. And the cruelest part? It doesn't actually protect us from anything. It just steals our present moment while pretending to safeguard our future.
But here's what I'm learning. Slowly, imperfectly, one day at a time. Confidence isn't the opposite of anxiety because it pretends everything will be fine. Confidence is the opposite of anxiety because it shifts where we're putting our trust. Anxiety says, everything depends on me and I'm not enough. Confidence says, I'll do my part and I'll trust that I'm not carrying this alone. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're learning to swim and you're in the deep end for the first time. If you focus only on the depth, on how far down the bottom is, on all the ways you could sink, panic sets in. Your body tenses, your movements become frantic. You actually make it harder to stay afloat. But if you remember what you've been taught, if you trust the water's buoyancy,
if you let yourself relax into it instead of fighting it, suddenly you realize you're not sinking, you're being held. The same water that seemed threatening is actually supporting you. That's what this shift feels like, from anxiety to confidence. It's not pretending the deep water isn't there. It's learning to trust that you're being held even in the depth. And I know some of you are thinking, but you don't understand what I'm facing today. You don't know how real this threat is, how serious the situation is. And you're right, I don't know your specific circumstances, but I do know this. Worry has never once added a single good thing to your life. It's never solved a problem. It's never prevented a hardship. All it's ever done is rob you of the peace you could have had in the present moment. So what if today, just for today, you made a different choice? What if every time the anxiety started to rise, you noticed it, acknowledged it, and then gently redirected your thoughts? Not by pretending everything's fine, but by reminding yourself of what's actually true. That you've made it through hard days before. That you have strength you haven't even tapped into yet.
That there is a wisdom available to you that goes beyond your own understanding. That you are not the one holding everything together, and that's actually a relief, not a burden. Today, you get to choose confidence, not because everything is perfect, but because you're choosing to trust something bigger than your fear. We've walked through this morning together. We've talked about starting in presence, about protection on the path, about wisdom in decisions, about peace in hard places, about confidence over anxiety. And now we come to the part that might be the hardest and the most freeing all at once. Letting go. Truly, fully, completely letting go. Because if I'm honest, I can pray all the prayers, speak all the right words, nod along with all the encouragement, and still walk out that door with my hands clenched tight around everything I'm trying to control. I can say I trust, but my actions, my stress levels, my inability to rest, they all tell a different story. They reveal that I'm still trying to be the one who manages it all, who fixes it all, who carries it all. And maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe you've been nodding along, feeling comforted for these few minutes, but there's a part of you already thinking about how you're going to handle everything once this video ends. Already mentally preparing, already strategizing, already trying to figure out how to be enough for everything today demands of you. But what if you didn't have to be? What if the invitation here, the real invitation, is to open your hands, to release your grip on the outcomes, the timelines, the need for everything to go a certain way? Not because you're giving up, not because you're being irresponsible, but because you're recognizing that some things were never yours to carry in the first place.
Surrender doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean you stop doing your part, stop showing up, stop being responsible. It means you do what's yours to do, and then you release what's not. You plant the seeds, but you don't try to force the growth. You have the conversation, but you don't control how it's received. You make the effort, but you don't measure your worth by whether everything turns out perfectly. I think about how a child falls asleep in a car, completely unaware of the traffic, the route, the dangers on the road. They're not being careless. They're just trusting that someone else is handling what they cannot, that someone else is watching the road while they rest. That's the kind of surrender I'm talking about. The kind that says, I've done my part. Now I'm going to rest in the truth that I'm not the one steering everything. So as you step into today, as you walk out that door and into all the unknowns waiting for you, I want you to take one more breath, a deep one. And as you exhale, picture yourself releasing everything you've been holding so tightly. The need to control, the fear of what might happen, the pressure to be perfect, the weight of everyone's expectations. Let it go. Not forever, not in some dramatic, unrealistic way. Just for today, just for this moment. Just enough to remember that you are held, you are guided, you are loved, and you are never meant to do this alone. Walk in peace, walk in protection, walk in confidence. Walk knowing that every step you take today, you take covered. And when the sun sets tonight, may you lay your head down knowing you were never once alone.